Chill here with Sirius Dallas Moon, Moon Hour, Moon Day. The moon is 14 degrees Aquarius. Mid Heaven, 0 degree Libra. Ascendant, 16 degrees Sag. And Jupiter is 18 degrees Cancer. Venus with Pluto. Um, I want to talk about revolution, okay? I want to talk about revolution, resistance, and so on and so forth. So I know that my hat, although I have a degree and a half, or almost 2 degrees, 2 degrees minus petering, in the politics and governance. um, and yes, this is because I studied in Ben Gurion University. Um, Definitely there was, by the way, I did not know that it was a cult like trafficking ring, uh, because I was just like, okay, that's not something that that doesn't feel good to me, not the environment. Um, I'm really grateful for the people that did support me, um, particularly because of those levels of trauma. Okay, I've been body mind question research in departments of politics. My instructor was both an MD and had background in philosophy of science, and it's very difficult to see that there are also people that are not trying to get at you when you're fighting such a horribly abusive system. Um, but yes, the trafficking thing has to go. That those things have to go. Um, and this is where a lot of people in a lot of departments had that. I was even told that the fact that they persecute those who say no was collateral. Um, Mind you, I went to university because I didn't get along with the corruption in the working sector, meaning that I would not participate in corruption or in the subprime maneuver corruption. And again, I was not an economist or anything. I was just like, hey, it doesn't make sense. It's not something that would serve the client. It's not building relationship of mutual growth with the client, and that's not business to me. So it just didn't make sense. It didn't make business sense to me. Um, and I know that that's not how people thought about businesses. But when I run into that fuckery in the academia, then immediately I think, well, we have all the scientists, and then I see that it's there too, and then I see it's in real estate too, and I'm like, kind of, academia. I can say, yeah, I studied in politics and governance, but the reason I'm saying all of that is I know I came from mainly philosophy of science hat. Yes, not that permeated to my thesis in academia, but um, in philosophy of science we study the basically the history of scientific revolutions, and um, when it came to political science, then is also the revolutions and history of revolutions, civil wars versus world wars, and so on and so forth. Um, I hear a lot of good things that are said. To be disruptive but not violent, to disrupt infrastructure. And yes, there were things that were done. In Israel, they were blocking the Kiryat, which is kind of like the Israeli Pentagon. They were blocking the Ayalon Bridge, and yet the people that gave those teachings, in fact, one of the trafficking leads was the one that gave those teachings. Okay, so it's obvious that Could people really block major transportation infrastructure um, to abolish extortion cults and ritual abuse in the decision makers? Okay, and that's that's something to consider. Another thing is um, disability friendly action. If we are to abolish slavery, it's not for the fit and competent. It's take ice takes the fit and competent to death and concentration camps. They don't pay money to load these people on a plane and just put them where they came from. That's not what that's not what they're in charge of doing. And to people that believe that deportation is such a friendly act, they say, oh, but the country is of war, even if. Um, but also not having disability friendly solutions is really not considering the things that caused the situation to begin with. Why did, let's say, Target, okay, shout out to Park West Permaculture, why did Target need to hire immigrant employees? Can an employee in Target buy a house and a land which is basis for nervous system supportive housing and grow a family working part-time shift in Target? Because if they are to be a parent and they are to have actual parenting, which means father or mother spending time with their child, okay, if that sounds like, oh, that cannot happen, this is utopia, this is that, well, what is the reality? Is a Holocaust, is death and concentration camps. Then they hire immigrants to do that. What do these immigrants need to do in their spare time? Kidnap, torture, traffic, trade people. Or try to somehow, after a full shift in Target, go and, or, another store, go and I know those are the stores that serve the community. Okay, I have a colleague astrologer that ate talismans, and there was a phase in their business where they had to accommodate for everyone, and they had to later publish that move. So they did a lot of changes. People could come and go when they leave, bring the children, bring the pets, and I think there was something. I think it had to do with the birth maternity leave or something like that. That it was late, and they even have so and so days or weeks maternity leave. And I'm like, well, that's an American trying to do. And for the American, it's bending over backwards to do something that literally is setting a new standard for life. Okay, it's and this is um, and this is something that Israel has a fourth house Capricorn. People, I'm sorry, it's like black communities in Africa. They're so used to hard work that slavery looks like a vacation. Okay, there's a joke. There was this short of a guy whose father, I think, came from Africa, black person, and he imitated his father. So he was resting a tiny bit of a moment, and his father was scolding him why he's resting. You know, kind of like a Nazi SS. And I saw that, and I was like, well, before these people, when they came to traffic them basically to slavery, probably their fathers of the young men was saying, well, they give you a right to work. As you should thank them because and and this is exactly coming from those cultures, okay? Um, where and then what happens? Somebody gets addicted to something, and all the money goes out, or the resources. So, word about resistance without tending to extortion, cult, ritual abuse, all the things you called satanic panic in the 90s. Don't expect to not be fighting the same fight all over again in less than a generation. Okay? Gotta think, what's the one thing that changes everything? If in the hands of the extortion cults, it's kind of like going to a mechanic and they fix, okay, they fix the radio but they break the engine. Mama, don't fix the radio in the car in the coming decade. Social engineering or not. um, so fighting for our rights without abolishing extortion cults is quite the same. It's attuning the radio and then breaking the engine. And we see that in the resistance, okay, where they were demonstrating for the kidnapped people. One week there were tents next to the Kiryat. I know because I escaped a human trafficking apartment, and that was my housing for a little bit because I didn't want to overweight on my family. And then one sudden day they closed. Now the good thing was about these tents was like, hey, if there are people that are homeless, they can sleep there. Then we really are bringing the kidnapped back because we make space for people to return. Um, but then the kidnapped came back, and their people abuse the kidnapped people today. They say, oh, they misbehaved. That is, they're mind controlled after years, 2 years of torture. Okay, they're um, you'll say, what about the Palestinians in the Israeli prison? Again, the best way for me to answer that is, what about the Mama Talibans in Gaza after a genocide? so, so who created? You know, Just as we understand that those Jews that were trafficking children and women and probably men to the Nazis created the Holocaust more than Hitler. Hitler could not have done this without them. They did not save from the Holocaust, they created the Holocaust. And they're still active in Israel. Will Jews in Israel be persecuted like they were persecuted by the Nazis? Of course! Read Psalm 17 times. King David was a rapist. The Talmud justified trade and rape of children. Using war as justification for rape. Any group, it's not anti-Semitism, tribe in, I don't know, a Y continent of whichever skin color acts like that, genocide. And then, of course, they were blaming the women. Why did the Holocaust happen? Because of human trafficking, ritual abuse, and extortion cults. Couldn't have done that without that. Those were the infiltrators. Those were the people that said, this person lives here, that person lived there, because they wanted to traffic the children. They wanted the people to turn to them so that they can traffic the children. Those were the people that tried to put people in debt to enslave them. Wherever that exists, there's gonna be a shit ton of it now. You won't get your human rights not tending to that. Because if it's happening there, if those things happen, then anything can happen. If that can happen, entire humanity can go boom with everything living, animate and inanimate. If rape can happen, entire humanity can go boom with everything completely exterminated. In fact, that was the point of that, to exterminate humanity. If we don't tend to the core issue, now, it's important to understand that around that core issue, anything that aligns with slavery, for example, the wages that are not suffice to have house and land, housing and land independent of ability to work, accommodation for the disabled that is sovereign, not to seek to make somebody sick and then be an apotropsy over there and take the human rights and so on and so forth. And that's culture. In cultures that are more susceptible to those things, Holocausts happen more easily. Now, all of us need to sort the wheat from the muck. Okay, for example, this phone produced with rare earth minerals, I don't know, probably if it's so cheap, they could have been either from China or even from Congo. Do I even have access to the information of which type of phone is produced from ethical rare earth mining and zero rape society, from the rare earth minerals to the to me broadcasting on this phone. Okay? So yeah, there's a shit ton of points of interferences for everyone. They're sorting the wheat from the muck for everyone. Okay? The person that taught us, why don't they block Ayalon? If they blocked Ayalon tomorrow, the entire country, he said, oh, I could be, I don't know, exterminated for telling you that, is the person that traffics people. That says about the students that refuse to, that they are sex workers so that they will be raped in hope that they will agree to. Why? Because he came from such society and that's how they act in that society. What society? The people that forcibly make people religious and traffic them in Bnei Brak and so on and so forth. All the while pretending that he hates the religious people, he hates the religion. Sports and politics. Torture and rape of students using dark occult and all that dumb fuckery, particularly if those people shed light on the body-mind question in the medicines. And then people demonstrate. It's not that they demonstrate for wrong causes, okay? They block the Ayalon for disability rights. Playing loud music next to ICE, that's a genius idea. Okay? If we make the rapist too tired to rape, that's a genius idea. Whereas the combination of understanding, what's the one thing that changes everything? How do they get people to ICE? They rape them. Amazing. We need to act for zero rape society, both for women and for men. No more oaths and fraternities that rape people and children and have trauma bonds instead of sovereign, healthy connections. They take the men in crisis time, bring them into trauma bond, and then the person that tried to traffic me told me that they bond, the men bond on the basis of their camaraderie as warriors, where they're basically raping women. You don't so much as say that, but they're basically attacking women. And they do it for power. And he's saying that while he's trying to traffic me. That's how convoluted everything is in those societies. What kind of esoteric societies? Everyone, every decision maker, everyone, black, blue, white, yellow, orange, And the women that get along with that either participate in that or have to turn the gaze away or laugh with them as if they are part of that and go against the women that said no to trafficking. That's academia. That's the ivory tower. Now, if we understand that what created the problem was slavery based rape society, and I don't mean just rape of women, they rape the men, and that's a feminization humiliation ritual. Okay, a person that does that told me that. Okay, of course they're being persecuted, and it is because the extortion cult is set to expose them. Is he running an extortion cult? Very likely. You want to know why I quit my job there? I didn't understand he was trying to traffic me. I understood he was acting very weird. And I thought he had a crush on me or something. And he was acting very weird, so I thought he wanted me to go away. Later, I would find out that he was trying to have a trauma bond with me. And that didn't, for entire decade, I'm still dealing with that. And that everything up the echelons of the politics, of everything, because he saw in me a talent. And he needed to traffic that talent and gain dividends, and you do the extortion calls of whatever was his agenda. What agenda can be to a person that is constantly trafficking and being trafficked? I don't know. But and try to siphon on the creative energy. That's the training of every decision maker. And they put them through those rituals, and then they can be parliament members, they can be, I don't know. And he saw I never talked about my thesis. I protected it like a baby. And he saw what my thesis was about because he was surveilling me. People that are in those circles, their world was broken 1,000 times, and they can't see anything but broken dreams. And they create broken dreams to derive some sort of false sense of power. Not tending to that, there's no demonstration, revolution, social change, because what they will do, they will increase the benefits of the people with disability, but then try to force the disabled people out so that they would have an autocracy and will not have their own sovereignty over their money, or they would raise the inflation so that it wouldn't matter. Your enemy is not ICE. Your enemy is the extortion cult that created ICE. And if you tend to that, a lot of ICE would no longer be your enemy. Unless they already went through the pain pleasure reversal, which basically would mean that they are sadistic. And a lot of them did, yes. But a lot of them are just shit fuck scared. That person that was shooting a lady in her car, I believe he was afraid of her. They're taught to fear women. Particularly women that has a spiritual understanding, because all they do is crooked. And one sovereign spiritual person, man or woman, can see through to that and see, hey, something here is not. It's not sex, it's not spirituality, it's not work, it's not housing, it's not politics. Now, when I said Pluto ingress to Aquarius, the people that can get out of the lodges to get out of the lodges, if they had pain, pleasure reversal, regain connection with pleasure that is not sadistic, then to those sadistic things. Okay, I'm not talking about people who are doing things safe, sane, and consensual. I'm talking about people who are programmed. No, there are no therapists out there. They also been through that, so their job is to perpetuate the situation. If the change will not come from within the lodges to change the trauma bond based culture, they will be persecuted. Because the soul of each and every person in those societies want out, whether by death or out of the cult. Those that see people that are sovereign, empathetic, healthy, thriving as losers, now again, that eyesight that somebody can have, oh, they can have my perspective, your perspective, my perspective. Okay, people need to have housing. People need to have a work, that is not slavery camp. Revolution and demonstration that is for the people, not a pack of labor camp people standing in a long line that basically imitates and creates the situation of where there were food stamps and there were people standing in line for the food stamps. That's what's behind those that organize those things, because they're in those cults. People, discernment. Watch Kneading Cult, Kneading Cult Lady. Watch the people that went out of cults. If you don't know to discern, I go to a shopping center in Israel. There's a baby shop, okay, for what you buy, the wagon for the baby and so on and so forth. Next to it, furniture and things for the house. Lovely, lovely place. The name of the baby shop is something to do with oral sex, to do with children. That's a word play on basically that thing that the children put in the mouth. So basically to suck on um, that thing that they put in the mouth with, rather than to suck on their own fingers. It's a pedophile brand, and women go to buy their stuff for their babies. Discernment. You're not imagining. If it looks like a death camp, it must be designed by someone who designs death camps and leads to a death camp. We can cry about ICE taking the employees from the private death camp, which those jobs that wouldn't yield housing, they wouldn't even yield health care or emergency health care. They would yield the diseases. However, serving the community to government-owned death camps, they're just taking them from one death camp to another death camp. The other death camp is just so obvious that it's a death camp that people begin to actually revolt. Now, we all have that internally. We all need to sort the wheat from the muck internally. When I was during COVID, when I was in between houses, I thought, well, what do I need? A bed in a hostel? And I'm fine. I'll just work on my business. I just repressed the fact that because the housing sector is so crazy. So I said, okay, what are my basic needs? There was a pedophile in that hostel. And not only that, that bed I was paying for, it was the cost of rent. Why? Because I decided to spend money to save time, to dedicate time to grow my business. But no, that bed is not something to work from. And my coping mechanism was, yeah, there was this big, huge crisis happening, one after another. You know, COVID was a time of one after another crises. So I said, I'm going to keep my sanity. I was working on my business. Let's continue to work on my business. We're given astrological readings in the meantime. And for me, I was like, okay, those things that I was afraid of, or I'm facing them. I'm growing. Without housing first, independent of ability to work, everything is going to collapse until we have that, including ourselves, our health, our sustainability, our everything. Before there was protection, there was the fact. I remember in Israel there was a lady that was homeless, and then when people find out that she rents an apartment, they were like, What they thought she lied to them, but no, she was an older lady, and in the past, homeless was a person that doesn't have their own house. And this is how we would get to situations where somebody built a house for their family using extortion code. Now, of course, that house is not going to stay in the hands of the family. And then somebody comes to live in that place as a tenant. Both they try to traffic that person and gets the reject of their lifetime, and it's the house that they built. So their energy, their soul, their psyche is attached to these four walls. And their energy is not desired inside their own home. I don't know what was their upbringing trauma. This tenet sector is not working. People need to have their own house. Now, of course, probably the water, pay for water, pay for this, pay for that. Keeping in mind, I think half moons, like the reforested the Sahara, and see what grows there. This action brings transformation of ancestral lineage, both of mine and everyone around. I ain't to blame that I did not have a house. If I'm a tenant, I'm going to take care of the place like it's my own house in hope that I will have a house. I was doing my own shadow work. The alternative is to have tenants that ruin the place because they don't believe anymore that they will ever have a house. And they tried to get me to do that. I said no. Because they're just gonna build a trafficking hub. Sun ingress to Aquarius. Now this Venus-Pluto cycle with Jupiter in the 18 degrees, this is a cycle where women stand in their power in the face of toxins, toxic beliefs about mothers, houses, architecture that is compatible for a family versus the toxic beliefs or the toxic limiting beliefs. Not an easy cycle. Okay? We're basically opening a year and something of Venus Pluto tending to that. So I always wait for the synodic cycle. It tells me what is this cycle about. And that's just the same thing because the working sector became labor camps way before we had ICE. Now, each and every one of us is going through the transformation differently. Before COVID, was I thinking about, I don't know, bigger apartment or me needing a living space? Living space was something that we heard about from Hitler. I say I'm half Dutch. In Netherlands, I wouldn't get more than that. I don't need more than that. But to actually have something that's not a big mess in a small space is not possible. To shower in a space where there is ritual abuse, trafficking, attempts to film people, okay, temperatures that are not fit for shower is not something that is actual a good shower. Those things come way before the gas showers. Way before, okay, way before the pronoun network, the pronoun social network was bought and changed, nobody was talking about the fact that gender affirming care is yet another one of those forced genitalia mutilation operations that are done also on children without actually disclosing and allowing for patient sovereignty. Aquarius is the planet of scientific revolution, but in terms of society, it's simply all those things that were swept under the rug as satanic panic, as they don't want to work, as, oh, they can take their lives, it's their lives, becomes a phenomena. Oh, the Me Too went too far. Okay, mass graves upon mass graves, anonymous graves like 7 times the Great War. Over nothing. Don't rape. Have all the rebellion in the world but become anonymous mass graves. I don't know. Oh, it's not that simple. It's not, nothing is that simple. It wasn't simple for the men and women that survived ritual abuse to speak up, stand speaking up, keeping to speak up, losing every single anything that they had. To people that use their life energy and try to make them do war crimes to get what their life energy was used to build. Simple, not simple. If we want change, of course that those societies will be persecuted, that those societies that do those ritual abuse rights will be persecuted. With all the wealth consolidation and the resources that they confiscated, basically by torturing people, depriving people of the lineage of connection to the land and so on and so forth, and taking over the land. But here is the thing, they can only do that in society where the culture is already like that. Where the imams go by Islam to rape 12 years olds, where the Jews wear a penguin suit to traffic and rape 12 years olds and even younger. and siphon the life energy of infants. People that grew up entire life dead alive because of rituals. Trying to preserve to keep silent, to keep silent, to keep silent, to keep a bomb. That creates a bomb. 70 years, no more. Keep silent, and this and that. We can't speak, don't speak. No more. 70 years, no more humanity on the places where those things happen. Mercury is ingressed to the 29th degree, which means that it sextiles Neptune. Neptune is radiation, toxic radiation. Jupiter, 18th degree. Okay? Which is interesting because that's the time where I spoke about this. And Saturn, our Saturn ruling over Pluto, a bomb. Will the Saturn Neptune conjunction be an actual A bomb? It's not impossible. Don't rape, and it won't be. Very simple. All those demonstrations, all those things, all amounts to nothing when there are extortion calls and they're in the tunnels and they're in the housing and they're in the workplaces way before they are in ICE. If all of these, you know what? If all of these people tended to that, directly to that, besiege those estates, okay? I wouldn't be surprised if ICE would join them because they were tortured in these tunnels. People en masse seeking out the estates where there's ritual abuse, besieging those estates, besieging the Epstein Islands, besieging the Diddler's estates, confiscating the estates, releasing the people. This has a massive, massive frequency change, better than anything that would be cosmetic. Each and every neighborhood has a trafficking brothel, besieging those places as civilians, releasing those people. That's your housing. That's your, not just affordable housing, housing. Without those trafficked children and people, they can't extort. If they can't extort, it shuts the economy down. Not from their controlled perspective, from the people's perspective. If they don't have anyone to traffic, they don't have a trait of corruption. It's the infrastructure of corruption abrupted. The only reason, one reason only is not happening after this video is one reason only, is the people that are raping those children or trafficking them, being behind the demonstrations,